අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First to 9, this Friday the 12th of May 2023. Towards sustainability, UNDP and Ministry of Transport and Highways launch pilot project to convert petrol three-wheelers to electric three-wheelers. Fruitful investments. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says steps will be taken to ensure that no funds are allocated for projects with no return, but will rather be invested in education. One-sided. Colombo Municipal Council launches dengue control program today. Expert says Colombo residents don't support the program.
From AdaDerana, this is
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, now a pilot project to convert petrol three-wheelers to electronic three-wheelers was launched today at the Department of Motor Traffic. The pilot phase will begin with 200 three-wheelers selected from locations in Petta and Makumura. Now speaking during the event also, the UNDP representative in Sri Lanka said that the project aims to help Sri Lanka save $1 billion from the annual fuel imports, while also simultaneously helping the country achieve carbon neutrality by the year 2050. The UNDP resident representative for Sri Lanka, Azusa Kubota, and Minister for Transport and Highways, Bandula Gunawardena, took part in an event today held at the Department of Motor Traffic to launch a pilot project to convert petrol three-wheelers to electric three-wheelers.
විදුලි තිරෝධරත නිෂ්පාදනය කරන ආයතන නිරීක්ෂණය සඳහා මම ගිය අවස්ථාවේදී මම සතුටු වෙනවා බොහෝ සමාගම් මේ තමන්ගේ අමුද්‍රව්‍ය පාවිච්චි කරලා මේ රටේම බැටරි නිෂ්පාදනය කරලා තියෙනවා චාර්ජර් ඔවුන් විසින්. ඒ නිසා මම ප්‍රවාහන අමාත්‍යවරයා වශයෙන් මහා මාර්ග ඇමතිවරයා වශයෙන් මහා මාර්ගවල චාර්ජින් සෙන්ටර් ඒ බැටරි චාර්ජ් කරගෙන යන්න කිලෝමීටර් 30ක් 40ක් ඇතුළත ස්ථාන වෙන් කර දීම සඳහා මාර්ග සංවර්ධන අධිකාරියට උපදෙස් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. රෝඩ් ඩෙවලොප්මන්ට් ඔතොරිටි එක විසින් මහමග පාරවල් දෙපස වඩා තදබදයක් ඇති නොවන ආකාරයට මේ තිරෝධරත හිමියන්ට ලංකාව පුරාම චාර්ජින් සෙන්ටර්ස් ඇති කිරීම සඳහා අපෙන් අනුමැතිය ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. අපි බදුකුලී පදනමක් යටතේ චාර්ජින් සෙන්ටර්ස් ලංකාව පුරාම ඇති කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු. ඒ නිසා මේ කර්මාන්තයේ හෙට එච්චර කරවල නැහැ. අලුතෙන් මේ සියලුම නිෂ්පාදකයන්ට තමන්ගේ රටේම අපි රටක් වශයෙන් මුණ දීලා තියෙන අභියෝගය හැකිතාක් දුරට ආනයන පිරිවැය ඉම්පෝර්ට් බිල් එක අඩු කරගන්න ඕනේ අතර නිර්යාත අපනයන තුලින් එක්ස්පෝර්ට් earning වැඩි කරගන්න. ඒක විතරයි අපිට මේ තිබෙන දැවැන්ත foreign exchange crisis එකට විදේශ විනිමය අර්බුදයට තිබෙන විසඳුම්. ලෝකයේ අපිට තියෙනවා වෙනත් රටකට වඩා බලය වැඩි වෙලාවක් රඳවා ගැනීමේ ශක්තිය තිබෙනවා. අපේ ග්‍රැෆයිට් වලට ග්‍රැෆයිට් වලින් ග්‍රැෆින් හදලා ඒ සඳහා සින්ටෙක් එකේ පරිශන කරනවා. මම මේ රටේ උසස් අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යවරයා සහ අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යවරයා ලෙස මේ පරිශන වලට උදව් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා අපිට දවසක සමහර විට අපිට නුදුරු අනාගතයේදී අපි විදුලි තිරෝධ රථ නිෂ්පාදනය කරන රටක් පමණක් නොව විදුලි තිරෝධ රථ ජාත්‍යන්තරයට අලෙවි කරන රටක් බවට පරිවර්තනය කරගන්නට ශක්‍යතාවයේ හැකියාව පොසිබිලිටිය අපේ රටේ නිර්මාණකරුවන්ට තිබෙනවායි කියලා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා. ඒ නිසා අපි මේ 300ක් පමණකින් නවතින්නේ නැතුව මේ රටේ තිරෝධ රථ සියල්ලම විදුලියෙන් ධාවනය කරන ඒ අතර බැටරි වෙනුවට සූර්ය විදුලි බලයක් යොදාගෙන ධාවනය කරන්නට පරිශන කරනවා නම් අතදා බැලීම් කරනවා නම් ඒ තවත් යුග මෙහෙවරක් බවට පත් වෙනවා.
Today, we are launching the pilot phase of the conversion of petrol tuk-tuk to electric tuk-tuks. Globally, the energy shortage, increasing cost of energy, climate emergencies, and global warming all point to the need to accelerate efforts towards decarbonization of our society and economy. Here in Sri Lanka, the ongoing economic crisis characterized by the limited access to affordable energy, reinforces the need to invest in renewable energy options and also to phase out fossil fuels. As part of its commitment to the Paris Agreement, Sri Lanka has committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 14.5%. The island state also established 2030 targets to achieve 70% renewable energy in electricity generation. Sri Lanka also expects to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and has committed to not increasing the capacity of its coal power plants to transform the transportation sector to renewable options. Sri Lankans' dependency on imported fuel for mobility aggravated the economic crisis and people's access to essential services. And many tuk-tuk drivers have lost their income and livelihoods due to the high operating cost. This also has had a direct impact on the users of the tuk-tuks, as they have been an integral part of mobility for many Sri Lankans as well as tourists. The government is in the process of implementing very bold programs to transform the energy sector at large as part of the economic reform and recovery processes. It all means that this pilot project is a much needed strategic intervention for Sri Lanka. In UNDP, we are deeply committed to maturing our green development portfolio, and this e-tuk-tuk pilot is part of this program. This portfolio aims to introduce renewable solutions and support Sri Lanka in achieving a low carbon, green, and inclusive development. During the pilot phase, we will work with 200 three-wheelers to evaluate the feasibility and examine the economic, social, and cultural conditions for replacing and retiring the current fleet of tuk-tuk with EVs. This pilot project is a catalytic step towards facilitating this ambitious long-term transformation. The conversion of the entire active fleet of tuk-tuk, which I understand amount to 1.5 million, to electric tuk-tuk is expected to save $1 billion annually from the reduction of fuel import. The expected investment is around $5 billion. This intervention will contribute to nearly 46.8 million tons of greenhouse gas emission reduction. This is a significant contribution towards the national target of 14.5% reduction. This pilot phase will help us to establish a viable system and foundation for reform, which will be scaled up during the acceleration phase. The pilot would prioritize vulnerable groups, meaning women drivers, persons living with disability.
Now, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri and his Swedish counterpart held talks on the enhancement of trade and investment between the two countries. During a meeting on the sidelines of the second EU Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum, the two ministers went on to discuss Sri Lanka's economic recovery and reforms agenda.
A discussion was held between Foreign Minister Ali Sabri and his Swedish counterpart Tobias Billström yesterday in Stockholm, ahead of the second EU Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum. Taking to Twitter, Minister Sabri said matters pertaining to the enhancement of trade and investment between Sri Lanka and Sweden were discussed during the meeting, with focus on economic recovery, reforms and reconciliation. The Sri Lankan Foreign Minister is visiting Sweden to co-chair the first roundtable discussion of the EU Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum. Around 60 foreign ministers from the Indo-Pacific region and the European Union region, along with representatives of Indo-Pacific regional organizations and other partners, will participate in the second EU Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum, which convenes in Stockholm tomorrow. On the sidelines of the summit, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister is scheduled to hold bilateral discussions with a number of foreign ministers, including his counterparts from Austria, Denmark and Finland. Minister Sabri is also scheduled to meet the business community and senior officials of the Swedish IT industry.
Now, the World Bank today presented findings on an impact analysis conducted on the increase of electricity tariffs in Sri Lanka. The World Bank team on poverty and equity global practice presented the findings of the assessment to Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara this morning. The analysis included findings on the impact of tariff increases as well as the distributional impact following the most recent rise in electricity rates. The Power and Energy Minister said he requested further support from the World Bank to conduct a full assessment of the tariff structure as well as the impact of electricity tariff increases on the poor and vulnerable communities in Sri Lanka. Now, Cyclone Mocha has intensified into a very severe cyclonic storm over the southeast and adjoining areas of the central Bay of Bengal as of today. Accordingly, issuing its red alert, the Department of Meteorology advised naval and fishing communities not to venture into the Eastern Sea area until further notice. Taking the prevailing weather patterns into account, the National Building Research Organization meanwhile issued early landslide warnings to several areas in 8 districts.
Issuing its latest warning, the Natural Hazards Early Warning Center of the Department of Meteorology stated that the cyclonic storm Mocha, currently in vicinity of the southeast Bay of Bengal, has intensified into a very severe cyclonic storm as of today. Mocha is the first cyclone to form in the Bay of Bengal this year and is expected to strengthen further before making landfall on Sunday. It is expected to make landfall along the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, packing winds of up to 150 to 160 kilometers per hour. Even though the cyclonic storm brings no direct impact for Sri Lanka, many parts across the country have been receiving heavy falls in the recent days owing to the system. In this backdrop, the highest rainfall during the past 24-hour cycle that ended at 8 am today was recorded from the area of Kalatuvana in Ratnapura district with 225.5 millimeters of rainfall. The inclement weather led to incidents of flooding and property damages affecting the daily lives of people in several areas. One such incident was reported from the Mookalan area in Delgoda after a large tree collapsed, damaging 3 residences and 2 3-wheelers nearby. 5 residents sustained injuries from the incident and was admitted to the Gampaha Base Hospital. Further, water levels of the river Ging overflowed, inundating several low-lying areas adjoining the river basin in the Galle district. The Department of Meteorology meanwhile issued another advisory for strong winds and rough seas around the island. Accordingly, in its amber advisory issued this afternoon, the department stated that it is dangerous to engage in activities in the sea areas off the coast extending from Galle to Potuville via Mathura and Hambantota, and in the sea areas off the coast extending from Chilau to Trincomalee via Putlam, Mana, Kankasanture and Mulathiv. The naval and fishing communities were requested to be vigilant in this regard. Meanwhile, taking the latest weather patterns into account, the National Building Research Organization extended early landslide warnings to several areas in 8 districts.
By considering prevailing conditions, the issued landslide early warning message has been extended up to 6:30 p.m. tomorrow for the following areas. Warning level 2 alert amber warning was issued to Palindanuwara and Valalavita Division Secretary Divisions in Kaltara District, Pitabadra Division Secretary Division in Mathura District, Ahliyagoda and Kiriyala Division Secretary Divisions in Ratnapura District. Warning level 1 watch yellow warning was issued to Sitavakan Padukka Division Secretary Division in Colombo District, Alpitia, Nagoda, Yakalamulla, Neluva and Baddegama Division Secretary Division Galle District, Mulasingala Division Secretary Division Kaltara District, Darnigala and Yatiantota Division Secretary Division Kegol District, Kottapola Division Secretary Division Mathura District.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe pledges to modernize education in Sri Lanka within the next 10 years in order to encourage young generation equipped with knowledge and nourished abilities. Speaking at an event in the BMICH, the President went on to say that the government will be able to allocate more funds for education, health, social service and social security by 2024.
The Sri Lanka Skills Expo 2023 exhibition commenced this morning at the BMICH under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Anywhere in Sri Lanka? Yeah. How to use it? That is an experience. Huh? Well, all the best. Huh?
Of ISSCs will contribute to the recovery of the Sri Lankan economy by actively engaging in these sectors. Since the labor force participation rate of women in Sri Lanka is at a lower level compared to many other countries, according to ILO statistics, promoting women's employment is important for achieving inclusive growth and development. In addition, amid the challenge of drained brain in recent years, it is believed that improving skills and promoting employment of women is important for maintaining and enhancing skills in the Sri Lanka industry. We consider women's empowerment as essential in this country, and we have provided various support to Sri Lanka in collaboration with ADB, United Nations, and other organizations. For example, in response to the economic crisis, we have provided support for the female farmers to improve their economic well-being, strengthened shelters for women who have experienced domestic violence, supported women entrepreneurs, and distributed food vouchers to pregnant and lactating women. Furthermore, we have supported Sri Lanka since 2018 in the formulation of the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security, which was adopted by the Sri Lankan government in February of this year. The improvement of women's economic status through this project is expected to provide opportunities for women's participation in all areas, including politics and ethnic reconciliation, and contribute to the steady implementation of the National Action Plan. Last but not least, next week, the G7 summit, which Japan will host in Hiroshima, will be held. And one of its important issues is gender equality. In order to promote it, as well as to make this year rebirth year for Sri Lanka, we will continue to support Sri Lanka towards the social advancement of women. I hope that this project will serve as a catalyst for the empowerment of women and the further development of the labor sector.
වියදම් දිහා බැලුවාම ගිය අවුරුදු 10 මට එක කාරණයක් පෙවුණා. අපි අධ්‍යාපන මුදල් දාන්න නැතුව සංස්ථාවලට මුදල් දැම්මා. අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ගුවන් සේවයට දැම්මේ මුදල් දැම්මනම්, අපි විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයට දැම්මේ මුදල් දැම්මනම්, අපි කනිජ තෙල් සංස්ථාවට දැම්මේ මුදල් දැම්මනම්, අධ්‍යාපන සෞඛ්‍යයට මං හිතන්නේ දකුණු ආසියාවේ හොඳම අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමයේ තියෙනවා. අපිට දේශීයම මලේසියාව එක්කත් තරම් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපි එකක්වත් කරේ නැහැ. දැන් අපිට වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ණය ගෙවන්න. ඒත් මම බලන්නේ නෑ විගහට පුළුවන් තරම් ශීඝ්‍රයෙන් ණය ගෙවන්න එන අවුරුදු 10 තුලදී. ඒ විතරක් නෙමෙයි. මෙහෙම වැඩ කටයුතු වලට අනාගතයේ මුදල් නොදෙන්න, සහනාදර නොදෙන්න. තවත් වැඩසටහන් ගණනාවක් තිබුණා. අපි තාම දන්නේ නැහැ මොකද්ද මේ මුදල් වලින් සිදුුනේ. අපේ පසු සම්පත් අධිකාරයට ගෙනාවේ සත්තු හරකුණු ඔක්කොම හිටියානම් අද තවත් විශාල සංවිධානයක් තියෙනවා. අද එකක්වත් හොයා ගන්නවත් බෑ එක සතෙක්වත්. ඉතින් දැන් ඉස්සෙල්ලා බලන්නේ මේවා සීමා කරන්න. මේ වියදම් අඩු කරන්න. මේ වියදම් අඩු කරනවා කියලා ආණ්ඩුවේ වියදම් අඩු කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි බලන්නේ අපේ රටේ ආර්ථිකය වර්ධනය කරන්න, ශීඝ්‍රයෙන් වර්ධනය කරන්න. ඇයි එහෙම කරන්නේ? එතකොට අපි සහනාධාර දෙන එක, අධ්‍යාපනය, සෞඛ්‍ය, සමාජ සේවා, සමාජ ආරක්ෂණය හා නිවාස වලට සීමා කරනවා. මේවයි ජනතාව ජීවත් වෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් ඊට වඩා මුදල් අපිට ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙනම් පාසල් දැනුමෙන් පස්සේ මෙතන තමයි ඊළඟට රැකියා දැනුම ලබා දෙන්න තියෙන්නේ. අපි අලුත් ලෝකයකට යන්නේ. තව අවුරුදු 10කින් තියෙන තාක්ෂණ දියුණුව අපිට කියන්න බෑ. ඒ නිසා මේ වෘත්තීය පුහුණු අංශයේ දියුණු කිරීමට අපේ අවධානය තවත් යොමු කරන්න තිබෙනවා. අපි සියලු දෙනාම එකතු වෙලා ඒ වැඩ කටයුත්තට කැපවෙමු කියලා මම ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමතියි. අපිට අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා 2024න් පසුව තවත් වැඩිපුර මුදල් මේ අංශවලට යොදවන්න.
And we'll be back with more news right after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. Addressing the parliament today, the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa claimed that the government has appointed a puppet as the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance who has no knowledge on public finances or the economy.
රජයේ මුදල් පිළිබඳ කාරක සභාවේ වාර්තාව එම කාරක සභාවේ සමාජික ගරු වජිර අබේවර්ධන මහතා විසින් පිළිගන්වනවා කියලා. මුදල් කාරක සභාවේ සභාපතිවරයෙක් නොමැති අවස්ථාවක අනීතික ලෙස ව්‍යවස්ථා විරෝධී ලෙස වැඩ බලන සභාපතිවරුන් රාජ්‍ය පාර්ශ්වයෙන් පත් කරලා කොහොමද න්‍යාය පත්‍රයට මේ රජයේ මුදල් පිළිබඳ කාරක සභාවේ වාර්තා නිත්‍යානුකූලව ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ?
එදා මයන්ත දිසානායක මැතිතුමා එතුමා ආණ්ඩුව නියෝජනය කරන කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ අනුව එතුමා නම් කරායින් පස්සේ යම් බලපෑමක් මත එතුමා ඉවත් වෙනයි කියන කාරණාව තමයි අපිට තොරතුරු වල තියෙන. මම ඒක ගැන කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී වැඩ බලන සභාපතිවරයෙක් පත් කරගෙන කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන්.
ඊට වඩා වැදගත් වෙන්නේ ඊයේ ගත්ත තීරණය. ඊයේ භාණ්ඩාගාරික බැඳුම් කර රුපියල් ට්‍රිලියනයක නැවතත් නිකුත් කරන්න කියලා යෝජනාවක් ගෙනල්ලා අනුමත කරලා තියෙනවා. වජිර අබේවර්ධන මන්ත්‍රීතුමාට තියෙන මොන දැනුමද ඒ ගැන මේක අනුමත කරන්න. එතන මේ සභාපතිවරයා හැටියට වාඩි වෙලා.
ඒ වගේම කරු කතානායකතුමනි ඊයේ පක්ෂනායක රැස්වීමට මම සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච අවස්ථාවේ ඔබතුමාගේ අවසරය පරිදි ඉතා පැහැදිලිව මේ භාණ්ඩාගාර බිල්පත් සීමාව වැඩි කිරීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවය මොකක්ද කියන එක කරු කතානායකතුමනි අපි පැහැදිලි කරා. ඒ වගේම එළබෙන සඳුදා දිනේදී අපි සිදු කළ යුතු ගෙවීම් පිළිබඳවත් සඳහන් කළා. ඉතින් මේ සියල්ල පුළුල්ව සාකච්ඡා කළා තමයි කරු කතානායකතුමනි මේ මුදල් කාරක සභාව අනුමැතිය ලබා දුන්නේ.
මොකක්ද ඔබතුමන්ලා තුනට කරේ? තුනට හොරෙන් කැඳෙව්වා පබ්ලික් ෆිනෑන්ස් කමිටි එක. ෆිනෑන්ස් කමිටි එක කැඳවලා මම සාමාන්‍ය මේ වචන පාවිච්චි කරන්න කැමති නැහැ. තමන්ගේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ගොට් එක්ක දාගත්ත මැක්‍රෝ ඉකොනොමික්ස් තියා මයික්‍රෝ ඉකොනොමික්ස් තියා ආර්ථික විද්‍යාව ගැන අංශු මාත්‍රයක්වත් නොදන්න. හැබැයි ඉතින් පපට් ඩීල් කාරයෙක්ව.
ඊයේත් මම යෝජනා කරා විපක්ෂයෙන් නම් දෙක තුනක් දෙන්න. එතකොට අපිට ගැළපෙන දෙකෙනෙක්ව අපි නම් කරගමු කියලා. ඒක අපේ විරුද්ධතාවයක් නෑ කතානායකතුමනි. ඔබතුමා මේක දිගින් දිගට ගෙනියන්න එපා. කාලය නාස්ති වෙනවා.
Now, a special dengue control program was commenced today and will be carried out for 2 weeks starting from today within the Colombo Municipal Council area. The Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Colombo, Dr. Ruwan Vijay said today that legal action would be taken against anyone who have been found to have with mosquito breeding places. Around 32,000 dengue cases have been reported in the country so far this year. 50% of them were reported from the Western Province and 20.2% of the number of dengue cases reported only from the Colombo district. According to health reports, most of the cases in the Colombo district are reported from Fort, Kurunduvatta, Modara, Kirlapana, Narayanpeta, Grand Pass and Jintupitiya. Accordingly, public health inspectors, officers and members of the security forces of the Colombo municipality launched a special anti-dengue program today. As the first phase of the dengue control program, the Maligavatta police station premises was fumigated. Then, inspections were carried out at the premises belonging to the Ceylon Fishery Corporation in Maligavatta. The experts reported that mosquito larvae had been found in the area. However, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Colombo, Dr. Ruwan Vijay states that some Colombo residents do not support the dengue control program. Now, the Colombo bourse ended lower today, dragged by communication services and the energy stocks. The CSE All Share Price Index settled 0.25% lower, ending at 8,927.74 points today. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 rose 2.28% to end at 2,587.89 points. For the week, the CSE All Share Price Index rose 1.1%, snapping 3 weeks of losing streak. The LOLC Finance PLC and Lanka IOC PLC were the top losers on the CSE All Share, falling 1.9% and 3.2% respectively. Trading volume on the index rose to 94.7 million shares from 45.4 million in the previous session. The equity market's turnover rose to 785.8 million rupees from 589.7 million rupees in the previous session. In the meantime, foreign investors were net sellers offloading stocks worth 74.7 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 749.5 million rupees. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against the other major currencies during the day. The global oil prices were stabilized today and were set to end the week flat as the market balanced supply fears against renewed economic concerns in the United States and China. Brent crude was down by 0.07% to settle at $74.93 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up by 0.06% at $70.91. Analysts forecast an emerging supply deficit for the second half of the year, pointing to an OPEC report issued yesterday which said the producer group expects July-December demand for its own crude to be 90,000 barrels per day higher than previously projected. However, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries kept its global oil demand forecast for 2023 unchanged, expecting economic risks to be offset by higher Chinese demand growth. There is mounting concern that the United States, the world's biggest oil consumer, will enter recession with talks over the US government's debt ceiling postponed and concern growing over another crisis-hit regional bank. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said today that the US faces financial and economic catastrophe if the Congress fails to raise the debt ceiling. Further, Fed Governor Michelle Bowman said today that the US Federal Reserve will probably need to raise interest rates further if inflation stays high. Meanwhile, a decline in new loans to businesses in China and weak economic data early in the week refocused doubts about its recovery from COVID restrictions driving oil demand growth. Now, US stocks rose today as regional banks struggled to recover, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500, the Nasdaq Composite, reported gains today.
Global stocks rose today as US regional banks rebounded and traders tried to end a volatile week on a high note. In the US, the Dow Jones Industrial Average traded 62 points higher, or 0.2%. The S&P 500 gained about 0.3%. And the Nasdaq Composite climbed 0.2%. Import prices fell 4.8% year over year. Companies that import goods can enjoy lower costs, providing less incentive to lift prices, which helps their profit margins but also contributes to decline of broader inflation. Another issue faced by the US is unresolved debt ceiling, meaning the Treasury could run out of funds by the end of the month. The Hang Seng Index is down 0.59% today, which marks its lowest closing value since the 25th of April. In mainland China, the Shanghai Composite Index fell 1.21%. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 index rose by 0.9%. South Korea's Kospi closed 0.63% lower and the Kosdaq closed 0.26% lower. In Australia, the S&P ASX 200 rose 0.07%.
And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Tune into our social media pages for the very latest updates. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.